right or left?
I'm in the center.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And, of course, Craig Crawford is chuckling away up here. Happy Friday. He's a columnist for the Congressional Quarterly, and he knows quite a bit about politics. Let me start with you, Michelle. Are we finding a situation where the Democrats and Republicans will fight a little bit about Iraq, but everybody agrees we got to stand up to Ahmadinejad, so everybody wants to look tough? Everybody.
Yeah. Everybody wants to look tough. Ahmadinejad is the easiest person to pick on right now because there's nobody to pick on in Iraq. The whole country is a complete mess.
Yeah, I think that. Have you noticed that, Craig, that the Democrats all sort of elbow each other aside to show who's going to be tougher with this guy from Tehran?
Just like they were with Saddam Hussein. I mean, it's here we go all over again.
Well, what are they always hawks in the first round, and then they think later? Is that the way the Democrats do business?
Democrats have they've been insecure about this stuff ever since Vietnam. I mean, they are constantly hit as the wimps on national security. They're still stung by that, and here we go again, for real.
So we have a hawk party and a pretend hawk party, or do we have two hawk parties?
Well, no, I do think, well.
Do we get a choice anymore? Is that un-American to have a choice?
Well, I'll say this. I do think that this is one of those, if the Republican Party loses the presidency in 2008, it'll be the first election they've ever lost on foreign policy. And that will be it was just like what happened to the Democrats in '68. It was their first election in a generation that they lost in foreign policy. And when you lose on foreign policy like that, it could actually shift the paradigm on what we assume on national security, assuming if a Democratic administration actually fixes the Iraq problem. Now, if they don't fix it, then the short-term trust in the Democrats on it will be just that short.
You know, Michelle, I get this feeling.
It's such an irony.
Go ahead.
I mean, it's just such an irony that in the week the Democrats pretty much officially gave up the fight on the Iraq War.
Thank you.
They started the saber rattling on Iran.
Let's see, what is it now? 2013. These are biblical numbers now.
10 years.
We were going to be there, a 10-year war, and now they're arguing, well, it should be 2023. I think they weren't willing to say at any point we're going to come home, would they? I really think they don't want to put any date.
Now, Chris, is that they're changing the subject on Capitol Hill. They're giving up on the Iraq War. They're talking about children's health. These are all important programs to the party. But they're trying to get base voters excited about some other liberal domestic causes in order to distract them.
Is there a complaint counter in politics? Yeah, guys, can you go back to the complaint counter like you could in the old days of Wanamaker's? You bought the dress, you didn't like it, the toy didn't work. They've elected the Democrats to end the war. Can't they take them back to the return counter and say, we bought this guy, we gave Pelosi the speakership to end the war, we gave Harry Reid the leadership to end the war? They're not even doing it.
Well, that's what they're going to do in November of 2008. You know, people sort of jokingly say,
which way are they going to go, though?
They're going to go, I don't know, but I think they're not going to take both parties back. It really depends. You've got a whole group of Republicans that say we've got two options. You either accept the fact that Iran is going to have nukes, or you go to war with Iran. And what I'm thinking is going to happen is that there's a small wing that's asking for a third option, and let's engage in dialogue with Iran. And it might happen. And if it does happen, I think the votes are going to go to the Republicans and not the Democrats.
This problem of nuclear proliferation began in 1945 when we first used weapons against Japan. Nobody took it seriously. There should have been a world agreement on this, including Israel and everybody else, and Pakistan and India. And now we decide there's one country we don't want to get the weapons, and we have good reason not to have them. But all of a sudden we're doing this ad hocism, and it has the sound of war drums instead of having an international agreement on whether we even need weapons. Maybe we should get rid of our nuclear weapons. How's that for now? That's what Reagan wanted to do.
I can imagine
Reagan said, let's get rid of all of them. Yeah.
This resolution, this sense of the Senate resolution they passed this week on Iran, I could see this White House saying that's authorization to do anything they want, even though it was a non-binding resolution.
I don't think that's going to happen. For all of his faults, I don't think George Bush wants to go to war with Iran.
It declares them a terrorist organization. And if you look at the other language, the president's got all kinds of language saying he can go to war with anybody who's a terrorist with global reach. He can say, this language says they are a terrorist group. I can hit them.
Well, they are terrorists, but I don't think George Bush is going to go to war with Iran. For all of his faults, there's too much at stake.
I have a memory. It's called the Iraqi Liberation Act of 1998. That was a precursor to going after Saddam Hussein. Everybody signed on to this thing that seemed meaningless, this little resolution, non-binding. And then it's quoted over and over again by the people supporting the war. But you signed on to this back in 1998. You agreed for regime change. You did it. and all of a sudden we're backing up the policy. These resolutions mean something. They're not just paper.
They do.
And the fact that Joe Lieberman's pushing it as a big hawk and Kyle's a big hawk, they're not pushing these resolutions for nothing. They're pushing them for support.
And the Revolutionary Guard is part of a government. I mean, that's what was so unprecedented. This was unprecedented. I mean, they declared a terrorist group, a group that is part of an existing national government. I mean, that is almost a declaration of war. Had it been
Are we stumbling into war, Craig, with Iran?
That's exactly what it looked like, and with such big numbers for this resolution as well. I mean, I just can't believe that so many Democrats were, and also that at the debate the other night, that the Democratic candidates weren't all over this.
It was interesting that it was just Gravel and then I think Edwards who jumped on it. Last night, I saw Jim Webb is upset about it, and he jumped on and he criticized Democrats for supporting this, saying it in the way he put it. So it'll be interesting, but she has to be. This is if she's going to face Giuliani, and if she's on the wrong side of this issue, it could cost her swing votes in Florida, swing votes in New Jersey. This is about Jewish voters.
Do you want to have a dime's worth of difference between these candidates? Or do you want them to be the same?
I think that she made a general election decision. She doesn't want to have a dime.
I just want to know whether it's posturing or reality. What do you think it is?
It's a little bit of both.
It makes me think
it's sable rattling. They're looking for voters.
I wrote a book about the 60 election, and Kennedy seemed to be posturing as tough as Nixon, and then we went into Cuba, we went into Vietnam. He ended up doing what he promised to do. We'll be right back with the Roundtable. You're watching Hardball, only on MSNBC record, and the Congressional Quarterlies. Craig, let me ask you about this fact that the Republicans, I'm calling them the four tops, the four top Republican candidates last night. Let me ask you, Michelle, skipped the Morgan State debate. African American debate. Okay, tell me about the feel. What were the atmospherics like in there?
It was amazing. I was so absolutely glad I was there. It was very dramatic to see the empty podiums where they should have been.
I think it's podia.
Podia. It was interesting to see the podia, as you say. The crowd was dynamic. Here's what shocked me. I had no idea so many African Americans were libertarians. I mean, people were in love with Ron Paul.
Really?
I mean, it was absolutely amazing. Kids with the T-shirts.
Well, he's anti-war too.
Well, he's anti-war. He's anti-drug. You know, the prohibition on drugs. And he's entertaining. Huckabee did very well. There was no one's reported about the fact that at least visually 30% of the people, 40% of the people there were white. You know, it was not just the African American debate, and the candidates were excellent. There was nothing
Who did you like? Can you say? Did you like Huckabee? People tell me he was pretty good.
I got to tell you, I liked all of them, but I thought Huckabee was outstanding. I thought Ron Paul was good, and Tancredo, he was really good. And he said he was. And
what are you talking about? He talked about illegal immigration, right?
He talked about immigration, but he put things in a way where you would think that the traditional Democratic voting base that are African Americans would absolutely oppose him. Like at one point.